Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I'm your host and foreman, Douglas Scoundrels. Today we're assembling the Seamus The Last Breath Master Box. I think I'm just going to call these Master Boxes because technically not called core boxes anymore, even though most of them are effectively core boxes that we're familiar with from 3rd edition. Anyways, this is the first Seamus box, effectively closer to Seamus 1, the Red Chapel Killer version versus the Sebastian Baker version. But he's not having his gun now, he's wielding 2 knives. Anyways, here's Seamus, our master, the totem, the Copycat Killer, this gentleman with the gun, then our henchman, Lady Sybelle, here, with the fan, and then some dead Doxies, this being one here on the far left and then on the far right. Doesn't look like we have the third one, so that's our artwork. Renders on the back. Madame Sybelle, Seamus, with his tailor's going to be very upset with him. The Copycat Killer now, well, still not having his feet planted on the ground, but at least this tentacle looks like it's going to be more solid than the tiny shears and the dead Doxies. Looking very pretty. Alright, that's our box, artwork, and renders. Let's look at the sprues. Here are the sprues that come in the box. Looks like we have the Copycat Killer on his own sprue, and Madame Sybelle on her own sprue as well. And then this one here is Seamus over here, and then our 3 Doxies. So we will do it in traditional order. We'll do Seamus, and then the Copycat Killer, followed by Sybelle, and then the 3 Doxies. But let's look at our Seamus instructions first, and then go over our order. Alright, for Seamus, we are going to do the 2 halves of his main body, followed by the scarf, at least the part of the scarf that's coming off of his butt. I think this is actually like part of his butt. After that, we can go ahead and do our left arm, our right arm, the bow on his neck, looks like, and part of the scarf, his neck. We'll just call this his neck, and then finish it up with the top of his head. So, let's grab these 2 bits first. Alright, here is his left half. Now let's add the right half onto that. Okay. Looking pretty good. Now, our flaps, butt flaps, going on his butt, right there. The scarf butt flaps. Okay, so those are the tails of his coat. I'm dumb. But I'm going to call them butt scarves. Anyways, now we can do his arms. Let's do his left arm. Sorry, this is his right arm. First, I think I got the halves wrong, now that I mention it. So our first bit we were holding on to was his right half, not his left half. And his left half we added onto that. I apologize. Sometimes I forget right from left. But now let's do his right arm, which is going to be, let's see, so, flip, Seamus. So our right arm is going to be this one, and then we'll do our left arm next. Right arm looks good. Right, now let's do the left arm. This one was a little bit hard to understand how it's supposed to sit in the shoulder socket, so you really just go off of the reference of the render on the back of the box, and you'll be fine. Alright, let's do his bow thing that goes on his neck right there. Okay, well, he does have some kind of necktie situation going. It's mostly like the bottom half of his head. But it looks to be in just fine, so now we can just add the top half of his head and his hat. What a delightful gentleman. Alright, he is done. Let's put on my base. Seamus, The Last Breath is done. Pretty simple master. Hardest part for putting him together was that left arm. Just getting the angle right gave me just the tiniest bit of difficulty, but overall, again, pretty simple to do. not going to complain. And he looks quite silly, which is, I guess, nice, since he's had some less than savory lore at times, so the more we kind of make him cartoony, the, I think, more bearable that is. But I guess we also got rid of the Rotten Bell, so that's another step forward. Anyways, let's move on to the totem. On to the Copycat Killer. I think we're going to assemble the entire body and then add the basing stuff to it. So we'll grab the torso and add the legs, followed by the top of the torso and the head. And then we can do the gun arm, followed by the not gun arm, and then we can add the foot to the body, the tentacle to the foot, and the bag to the tentacle, and call them good. Alright, let's look at the instructions and then start with this bit, followed by this one. Okay, actually, we need to add the other half of the torso first. Looks like we need that for a good purchase for the leg, so we'll add that to the bit we just clipped out that was here first. Here's the back half of the torso, now the front half and the face. Alright. Took me a while to figure out how this went on there, but the top part of the back half of the torso is actually his hat, which was a little confusing. But we got him now, so now we can finally add the legs down here. This doesn't actually sit flat against the sort of back of the coattails, so you'll need to do a little bit of wiggling to make sure the gap is closed over here and up here. But as you can see, no gap for me, so we're good. Now let's do the arm holding the gun, putting it right in there, his left arm. Okay. Just arm pointing straight out. There's a nice nub in there to make sure that you've got it pointed in the right direction. But now let's do his other arm, which should also be gripping the gun. It's just the one that isn't actually connected to it. Alright, let's do his right arm. Okay. You can see where the hands meet just together and grip the gun. Alright, body's done. So now we can go ahead and add our foot that is set on by a tentacle. Okay. The foot is in, and honestly I think it's probably smarter to combine the bag and the tentacle first before attaching them to this tentacle. Alright, so already got our bag here. Our tentacle's going to slot in right there. Looks good. And now we can just attach him to the end of the tentacle. He'll be facing that way. Now, changing things up, realize this is kind of an awkward connection point. So what I did is I ripped his foot off so we could better see how the tentacle attaches to the tentacle around his foot. Also note that you can probably connect that shoe to the tentacle down there to make it a more solid connection point. But I would definitely wait for this to cure before you add the body back up there, if this is what you end up doing. So with the magic of editing, I'm going to attach the body now after it's been cured. Okay, there we go. So he's pretty good. Let's put him on a base. The Copycat Killer is done, and he was a bit of a pain in the butt. Not just not realizing that I have to do the legs after I put the torso together, but really mounting him onto that tentacle and bag was kind of difficult. Just because that is a pretty small connection point on that ankle, and very easy to knock him out of place, bend him the wrong way, and I think he's still maybe bending backward a little bit too much. But overall, that's not too bad for me. Yeah, hopefully he's the hardest thing we've had to do. Let's keep going. Alright, on to Sybelle. Let's grab the two halves of the pelvis and then both of her legs. Oops, down here, both of her legs. And after we've attached those, we can do the upper torso, her left arm, her right arm, then her head, the ponytail, and lastly this thing she's got on her head. Whatever this is. Someone tell me what this is. Alright, let's look at her instructions and then grab these 2 bits. Alright, we got the back half of the pelvis. Now let's add the front half. Alright, they are combined. Now, the legs, I didn't specify which was which. We'll do the right leg first, which is this one, and then the left leg. Alright, right leg goes in here. Alright, pretty much the entire interior of the skirt is one big connection point for it, so you should be fine. Now let's do the left leg. Okay, that's good. Now we can do her upper torso. Alright, here looks like the body's good, so we can start on the arms. Let's do our arm holding the fan, which is our left arm, going right there. That goes in just fine. Easy, even. Alright, now let's do the left arm holding the whip. Sorry, the right arm holding the whip. Okay. Right arm and bleeder lash is in, or whatever they call it now. Now we can go and add her head on top. Head fit on just fine. Let that cure for a bit, and we can jab her ponytail into the back of her head in this hole. The hair is flowing very far to her right, not down like you might expect. Pay attention to the render and or the instructions. Alright, lastly, the thing she's got on her head. I should look up what that's called. Okay, for lack of a better word, I'm going to call it a headdress. But anyway, she's done. Let's put her on a base. Madame Sybelle is done, and I like this model. She has quite a bit of a glow-up. And, hardest part. Oh man, she was quite easy. So I'm just gonna say her hair. Yep. Not paying attention initially to the render and the instructions, I put it in the wrong way, and then I bothered to actually look, and it's like, oh, it's actually flowing out to the side. So that was just my own goof. But overall, quite simple. And I'm not gonna complain. Okay. Let's move on to the minions. Okay, on to the minions. Our first Doxy is going to be this one, to Doxy A. Here she is. We'll grab the 2 halves of the body, put them together, and then we can do right arm, left arm, and then her hat. Now let's look at her instructions and then grab these 2 bits. Alright, here's the main body. Now add the front of the skirt. Went in just fine. Now let's do the right arm, the one holding the umbrella. Oh yeah, she's holding that arm way back, and the umbrella is going to fit nicely in this little spot between these 2 bits, protecting it, which is good. You can probably glue it to her base like that. Alright, let's do the left arm, which will also connect the purse she's holding right there. The amount of goddamn sass in this pose. Holy shit. Alright. Lastly, her hat. Gonna go right on the top of her head. The hat can wiggle a little too much, so just make sure it matches the render, or this, I guess. It should be fine, but she's done. Let's put her on a base. Our first dead Doxy is done. We're gonna call her Edna, and she was heckin' simple, so hardest part was actually the left arm. Trying to get that angle so that it sat in the shoulder correctly and the handbag actually like sat in its connection point was the tiniest bit difficult. And when it's a model that's like 5 bits, you gotta kind of reach for the most difficult part sometimes. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Our second dead Doxy is a little bit more complicated. We'll grab the body and then do the back half of the skirt and then her feet. Then we can do the bow on her lower back, finish with our right arm, left arm, head, or hat, I guess, and then finish with the parasol. Alright, so let's look at the instructions and then grab these 2 bits. Front half of the body, flip her over, and then do the skirt. There we go. Now let's add her feet. Okay. There's the feet. My cat is screaming. Now let's go ahead and do the bow right here. Okay. Bow slots in just fine. Now we're going to do her right arm, which will connect to her shoulder, and I believe the hand is going to sit right here. There we go. Sorry, this is her right arm. I don't remember what I said. Anyways, let's go ahead and add her hat. I know I said do her left arm next, but yeah, let's do her hat. Okay, there's the hat. Looking cute. Alright, let's do the left arm holding the parasol. It's a parasol. Okay. That's good. Now, as far as the actual parasol, it's going to be really hard to see, but maybe you can see it possibly. Here, let me see if I can get the camera to focus better. There is just the tiniest notch right here. So effectively, if we're looking at it, it's like in the 10 o'clock position, that way. And on our parasol, again, really hard to see, but it is in there. You can see just the tiniest tooth right there. So that's going to slot into our notch. So if we were staring at her straight on, like this, the parasol, we would have to rotate it something along like that. This is where looking at the instructions gives us a little bit better reference. You can see these two holes, and this one with this sort of pill-shaped hole that's going to be on the bottom. So this is what it'll look like if we're staring at her from the back. Alright. There we go. Might fiddle it just a little bit to make sure that handle is as straight as we can make it, but she looks good overall, so I'm going to call her good. Alright, let's put her on a base. Our second dead Doxy is done, and we're going to call her Maud. I think you can probably guess the hardest part on her. It is the parasol, the actual part, the umbrella part of it. Figuring out the angle on that, and then getting it to stay in one place, and where it looks fairly straight is going to be a majority of your difficulty here. However, it is seated very close to her body, so I'm hoping that it is less likely to rip off, unlike other parasols that we've had in the game. Overall, I think that's a better design than the previous Rotten Bells had the parasol. I don't think the Doxys did. Whatever, they're more or less the same model now. Anyways, that's all it was for difficulty, just that one spot. Everything else is quite easy. Let's finish with the last one. Okay, our last dead Doxy. We're going to grab effectively the right leg, then add the rest of the skirt, and then attach the left leg down here to that. Then we can add the torso on top of that, plus the umbrella that might be jammed through her, not entirely sure. And once there, we can do the beckoning left hand, the right arm, which is up here, followed by the hat, and then we'll figure out how to put the decoration on the hat. Alright, so let's look at the directions, and then grab this bit, followed by this bit. Right, here's our first bit, the right leg, more or less. Our rest of our skirt is going to fit in just like that. Alright, there we go. Now let's go ahead and glue in our... My cat is screaming again. Glue in our left leg right there. Took a bit of wiggling and finagling, but we got it. I like her boot. Alright, now our torso, which is going to be bent over, is going to go right there. Okay, there we go. Now let's add her umbrella right in there, with the handle pointing forward and the pointy part going out her back. Sadly, it does not look like she's being skewered by this thing. Oh well. Okay, now the come hither hand is going to attach right in there. Okay. That's in. Now let's do her right arm. Alright. Right arm is in. Now let's add the hat on top. Just match the surface area of the hat with the surface area of her head. Notice there's like a point in the back of her head, whereas the area that isn't the tooth kind of also has a point here. So this is the back of the hat. Okay, The connection point for our last bit, the decoration on the hat, should be on her front left side of her head. Alright, now let's add that decoration. I'm just going to add it and you'll match it to what I do. Okay, there you go. Alright, she's done. Put her on a base. Our third dead Doxy is done. We're going to call her Madge. The hardest part for her was the left hand, trying to get it to sit correctly at the right angle was actually kind of hard, and the decoration on her hat, just because the detail on it's a little bit hard to tell exactly what its orientation is supposed to be. But, you know, actually, I would say the hardest part is her kind of small connection point on her waist and how that seems to make her want to pop off her legs as I'm adding other things to it. So I would recommend, once you add her torso to her hips, just leave her there, let her cure for a bit before you continue this build. But not too bad. Now let's go to the whole box. The Seamus the Last Breath box is done, containing Seamus the Last Breath, the Copycat Killer, Madame Sybelle, and 3 dead Doxys. I was surprised by some of the difficulty on these minis, but as far as hardest parts go, I would want to say the leg, pretty much putting the Copycat Killer onto the bag and tentacle was pretty difficult, as well as the parasol on the second dead Doxy, and no, those are probably the 2 hardest parts. Nothing super difficult, just some surprises here and there. Overall, I'd say it's pretty easy, and I think it's easier than its iteration in 2nd edition and 3rd edition, so I'll call that a win. Anyways, I have been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build a better Malifaux. Have a good night.